Hi, this is Josh Kulp. We are learning Daf Shevui. We are learning Masechet Kiddushin Daf Yod Het. And as the Gemara has been doing for many pages now, we continue to talk about the institution of slavery, particularly Israelite slaves, Hebrew slaves, Eved Ivri in Hebrew. We can sense that the rabbis want to severely limit this problematic institution. As I've said many times, also on video and in commentary, rabbis didn't live in a world where these laws were halacha l'maaseh, were enacted, but nevertheless they're interested even in a theory, and we see this all the time in rabbinic literature. Even theoretically, they're interested in working it out so that these laws have very, very limited application. So the first thing, I'll deal with three issues here. The first thing is the issue of the thief being sold to recover debt. That's something we read about in the Torah. When a tunneling thief is caught, he can be sold to recover his debt. The question the rabbis seem to ask at the beginning of this page is, what if he was worth an amount different from his debt, which I imagine would almost always happen? What if he's worth more than the debt, and what if he's worth less? So now, if he's worth less than the debt was, there's a divided opinion. It makes sense that he should be sold, and then basically, however he can, either be sold again, or however he can be pay off that debt eventually. I mean, what can you do? Although there is an opinion, Rabbi Eliezer's, that says that even if he's worth less than the debt, he cannot be sold off. Basically, for Rabbi Eliezer, unless he's worth the exact amount that he stole, he can't be sold, which means that there'll be severe limited application to this law. Now, what if he's worth more than the amount that he stole? On this case, all opinions hold that he's not sold, and I imagine this would usually be the case. And it makes sense because if we don't not want to really allow people to sell themselves into slavery, let's take an extreme example. Let's say somebody steals a loaf of bread and has literally no money to pay it back. Would we really think that a person's worth a lot of money? You're talking about a slave for 6 years worth of work. At a minimum wage, like in today's salary, minimum wage, you're talking about $90,000, $100,000, $120,000. And let's say he stole a television, $500,000. Would we really, and he has no money to pay it back, would we really want somebody to be able to be sold into slavery to recover such a small amount of debt? And the Tanaim answer basically no. He can't sell himself into slavery, and he'll just have to pay the debt back in some other way. So we can see that they severely limit this law. The next question is about redeeming a female slave against someone's will. And we see here that it's against the father's will, which basically means we force the father to redeem her, even if he doesn't want to. And this is a pretty, I think, radical rule. Basically, we read elsewhere that a father cannot sell his daughter into slavery unless he literally has no money. In other words, he's totally broke. So basically, you have a case here, sort of comes out an absurd halacha. A person is totally broke. Because the Torah allows it, he's allowed to sell his daughter into slavery, and then we force him to redeem her immediately. Meaning, if he has that money, and let's say he doesn't owe it in another debt, then basically there's no avail, there's no purpose in selling her, and the law is basically written out of existence, as we see occasionally happens. The Rambam goes even a step further and says we can force the father to get some money, borrow money maybe, some other means of getting money, and buy his daughter back. Basically, they're writing the laws of a father selling his daughter into slavery out of existence, and I think you can imagine the reason for that. The third topic is ye'ud, which is designation. The Torah talks in the context of the female slave, the Torah talks about either designating her as a wife for himself, the master buys her, and then eventually designates her as a wife, or for his son. It seems like the pshat of the Torah is that this sale is supposed to eventually turn into a marriage. But the rabbis have a lot of questions about the nature of this yud, and since we're in Masechet Kiddushin. That's a main thing of what they're talking about. We're going to talk about this more in next week's. So I'll leave the major issue aside. Just the two questions that they ask here is Yehud marriage or is it betrothal? Okay, and we'll see the ramifications of that. And the other thing that the Yehud, they ask about this, again, this marriage designation. Can a father designate her for his minor son who can't yet really be with her? I'm gonna save for next week's video the major issue about how Yehud works. So stay tuned. And as always, I hope you participate in discussion on the Facebook page.